So we are about to call Dr. Chai to the stage. Very exciting to have you, my bro. In fact, I mean, I don't know why you're talking to you. Come on up. Come on up. Come on up. I don't know why I'm trying to do a monologue when you could really just be here. Minister of Enjoyment. No, yeah.
Thank you. She. Just checking the vibe, huh?
Wow. Man's making my vibe look terrible. Come on, let's go.
Thanks for coming, guys. She. Before we start, can I just check the energy in the room? Can I just do a vibe check?
Check the vibes, man.
And if you're here and you're feeling good, from the back uko to the front, if you're feeling good, let me hear you say, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay, let me say that's almost at the frequency. Yeah, 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 joy. So yeah, in German. So let's just try one more time. That if you're here and you're feeling good, let me hear you say, we're in the place to be. We're in the place to be.
Minister of Enjoyment, man. Shout out for coming through.
Thank you for having
me. The one
bro.
thing that we always know we're going to get when we get Dr. Chai in any space, any stage, is energy. I was talking to some guys who were shooting Fiesta. And they're like, man, when that guy got on there were people who knew who he was and people who didn't know who he was. But as soon as he was there, it was like, yo, we have to respect whatever it is that's going on the stage right now. Is that who you've always been? Like, were you a problem around the house?
Kuzoti problem. I don't know about a problem, but I've always been an energetic guy, man. And I love connecting with people. I love talking to people, hearing people's stories. And I feel like as human beings, you know, the whole point of everything is to exchange energy. You experience me, I experience you. And in my experience, there's no better way to do that than sharing joy and positivity and good vibes with people. So, yeah, since I was a kid, and go farash there, you know, a good time.
Joy. Did your parents also know early that Jaguta Doctor wasn't on the cards, or did they discover later?
You know, it's funny. They just reminded me of a story. My brothers are here, actually. Shout out at CHAII. Pop, pop, pop. But I just remembered when I was young, there's a picture in the house of my parents putting me on a leash. Because we'd go places, you know, you'd be in the store, they'd be like, so I think at some point they're like, hey, bro, time to wrap it up.
You know what I mean?
So there's pictures somewhere of your boy on a leash, so I guess it started a long time ago.
Own got 2 meters at a time. If we give you any extra, you're going to be... But let's talk about the musical journey. One of the things when we had our conversation pre-production was you said, yo, man, I really want to have a conversation because this is what matters in these creative spaces, people hearing the creative perspectives. So I want to go right to the beginning of your journey with the music. How early does that start out for you?
My earliest memories of actual music are probably things like choir, the band, of actually interacting with music. I think growing up, even in primary school, I was always in like the band, always in the marching band, any choir. Church, you'd just be singing, it'd be Sunday school. You know, Zimbabwe is like everything is just, it's this music everywhere. And so anywhere where there was an opportunity to be around music, I just found out I'd love to gravitate towards that. My family would always be playing music. My dad would be playing CDs. My mom was at Ruadzano, the whole show and stuff. My brothers would always bring back CDs. So I was always around music. And I think at some point I started being exposed to like producers like Pharrell and Timbaland and all these people. Then you're like, so you can actually make these beats. And so then, you know, that kind of had the interest to say, maybe I should try this beat thing and, you know, start playing with instruments.
And there's an element of it of maybe I could make these beats, right? But like seeing Pharrell also means maybe I could make money doing this. Maybe I could look the way Pharrell looks and like get access to the women that Pharrell has or whatever else, you know, enticed you.
You know, those things are wonderful. But it's funny, I think, you know, if you ask any creative in the room, at the end of the day, even when people aren't getting paid, you'd still make music if you weren't able to make a living from it because that's what you love. I think when the money and stuff, it's more that you don't want to be a frustrated person when you're creating. But for me, you know, before I knew that you could do this for a living, I was like, these people are making beats, this is a vibe. I think even when you're young and you're picking up the guitar, you know, B-boys in the crowd, I'm sure you can tell you, Brian K. And it's like at the end of the day, when something's your passion, I think you find yourself coming back to it. On a good day, you come back to it. Bad day, you come back to it. So I think for me, production was one of those things like, you can actually express yourself this way, you know?
And as part of that production, because you talk about being in bands and etc, and we'll get to your production credits, which are literally insane. And
Thank you, bro.
whatever you think they are, there's more. But just from like the production standpoint, you talk about the band. Like I was saying, are they instruments that you played, or what were you doing in the band? Which guy were you?
Well, I was going to expose that much. So now I'm the guy who I can't really play anything for real, but I can pretend. I can play enough to just kind of, just write a couple songs and stuff. But in the bands, I'd always be the guy playing the drums, the easy thing. If it was the marching band, just supporting act. And then I think it was when I got older, I started learning about the piano. I think I tried to do piano lessons, but it was just, I didn't have the concentration to really see it through. But then I think that was kind of the thing where I was like, oh, you can write songs on the piano. But otherwise, I was just choir, singing, bass tenor, wherever, wherever they put me.
But it was very production heavy. Like your career almost feels like you're a producer who makes music as opposed to like an artist who produces as well. And like some of the early work, and I told you that I wouldn't we have to go back to high school and talk about a song called Muchi. I don't know if you guys know this song, and I don't know where it can be found. But if you have the opportunity to find this song, you should absolutely go and find Muchi. Oh, a painter has it, so we'll probably play it at some point at the end of the night. But at that point, it's like kids want to be rappers, man. I have a verse somewhere on the monster beat that I hope no one ever hears. But you were doing that, and then obviously we've seen a transition to your music now, which is so hard to box into anything, really and truly. But from the rapping side of it, was that like a conscious thing? Was that the space that you really enjoyed, or was that just what everyone else was doing around you?
That's a good question, man. I think it's a mixture of both. Because I think when you're that age, you sort of just emulate the things that you see. So if you see a rapper, you're like, it's cool to rap. MTV was full of rap and hip hop at the time. So those are CHAII, and I think at the time even like music and urban grooves, and it was like chamembe and all this stuff. Stuff was just there was a lot of rap and like rhythm. So I was like, okay, so to make music, you have to have rhythm. And I think Zimbabweans are like that, and Africans in general. And so I think the rap side was more, I didn't really know how to write songs with that. You can write songs, but when you were growing up, you're just like, my bars, and you write lyrics, and that's what you do in school. So that's just kind of how it started and how I thought music was supposed to be. And I think it was later when you start meeting people and you're like, there's pop songs and there's gospel songs and there's R&B songs, and you start trying to do different things and mixing melodies. But rap was definitely where everything started in high school with that song called Muchi.
What an actual classic. And I think because of what Muchi was, and people started knowing, there are these guys that are actually making wave. I didn't go to St. George's, I went to Gateway, and that song made it across. You know what I mean? Like, it made it across whatever road that was. And then sorry, I want to get to, and then you leave and start making all this other stuff that you're making. But even at that time, you end up being head boy at St. George's while rapping. I know Unukwatito was in the crowd somewhere as well. He was also he was head boy at Pete House and also rapping. But like that balance of being the good kid. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing that creators are often going in the opposite direction of. How do you become that guy and still manage to be captain of the soccer team and head boy of the school, and like someone that the parents probably thought maybe lawyer, maybe not doctor, but lawyer no gonna would still.
I know. You see, I had to finesse them. So in high school and stuff, I mean, to be honest, it's the same in high school. You know that you're rewarded for how well you do or how behaved you are. So very early, I'm like, if this is ever gonna work out, you have to do this and do that. And fortunately for me, school was never really something that was frustrating. I have a lot of memories of laughing a lot in school, bro. In class, playing soccer. Like for me, school was like a place where I had a lot of joy. And so I think it was more the transition to figuring out like, okay, I want to make music and figure out how to do that. But the deal was I had to go and get my degree. I studied marketing, and then I ended up staying on and doing a master's in marketing as well. So it was like kind of like, okay, no pizza chikoro. And then at some point when you're done with that, then at least we can have the conversation of like, okay, like what do you want to do? What are you excited about? But the whole time I was in school, I was still always making beats, always writing, every now and then people go to the club, you'd be like, today I'm staying in, make beats and stuff. Or like, that was always my go-to for, like I was saying, it's what I'd do if I wasn't even making a living out of it. So yeah, I think very early on, I just knew that, okay, finish school, do what you need to do, and then figure out the production side. Because honestly, there wasn't even that much information. Yoguzagoti, how do you begin to go into that sort of career? How do you get there? How do you go to that country? How is it sustainable? So it was a lot of learning as you go. Which I'm sure, like any creative thing, you're kind of winging it, and then every now and then, you start to pick up knowledge here and there. You meet people who can show you along, So then I finished my master's, and then at that point was the crossroads of, do you go and work in an advertising agency somewhere, or try this music thing and go and see if it'll work out? So that was sort of the moment I had to go home and say, okay, mama, daddy.
Garepas, I need you to be sitting down for this conversation. But how does that conversation go? Because, you went and did the masters and the undergrad. So do you even attempt to have that conversation straight out of high school? Do you try and say, yo, I want to go do sound engineering? Or do you allow it completely and just say, you know what, I will try this later?
Well, the weird thing about music is I didn't really have a desire to study music. And that's why creativity is weird, because sometimes it's something you love, but I didn't necessarily want to go and learn music theory, which I think is amazing, by the way, but just in my own story, that wasn't really what I was leaning to. So I was like, I'm going to try advertising, accounting, because that's just what you know, and that's how it goes. But it was more when I got back after when I graduated from my master's, and it was do or die, because my friend Bantu, who's also a Zimbo, shout out
Bantu.
And we'd grown up together, and he was already in LA at the time. And this guy was like, bro, before you go and do the 9 to 5 thing and do advertising, why don't you come and try LA? I was like, hey, try. I was like, how do you try? I was like, okay,
isn't it like $2,000 a room
how
for
can
rent?
you say come try a country? I was like, look at it, what's the vibes? But anyway, so that was kind of the crossroads, and so I went home and had a conversation with my parents, and they went a little like this. It was like, his mama, daddy, my friend said I could
come and try.
Go to LA. If it's your dream, then you must go. I was like, I was like, you must be kidding me. So I didn't ask too many questions. I was like, this man is in a good mood today. And so the deal was that I'd get 3 months. And they're like, okay, look, you finished your degree, you've done this, we've seen, I never stopped making music from the Muchi days and in high school. It was clearly what I love to do. And the deal was like, you can go for 3 months and we'll support you for 3 months. And after the 3 months, if it works out, you can stay. If it doesn't work out, you come back and you do the advertising thing. I was like, it doesn't sound like a long time, but all right, I'll take it. And so then booked the flight, went straight to LA, was living on my friend's couch. And then that's when the whole story starts of just trying to figure out how to actually become a musician for a living.
A lot of local artists especially talk about the idea of making it internationally, like appealing to different markets. And you were going there. I mean, the 3-month timeline was, they were setting you up to fail. But in general, there's a process of trying to make it in that sort of environment. When you're getting there, you don't have friends there, so there's no community to be like, I mean, you have Bantu, but you don't have like enough people. I could call like 20 people and like strong arm them to come and see me do something, but like you can't do that in LA, right? So
Yeah,
exactly. how do you build that community, and how do you like get going from the jump in that sort of like new market?
I think the tricky thing, bro, like anywhere when you move somewhere that you've never lived is no, bro, like a culture shock where you're like, you've left your friends, you've left your family, you don't really have anything familiar where you're like, if you go outside, you're like, oh, this is my Ningis or the shop I like or whatever. And I think even culturally, Americans are so different. And so in the beginning, it was so hard because a lot of things that I'd find funny, they wouldn't find funny. You crack jokes, nobody's laughing. You're like, "Ah, I thought I was kind of, okay, never mind." And so I think those were some of the challenging things in understanding how people speak. And, everyone was very like, hey, hey, hey. Everyone was so animated and loud and charismatic. So it was kind of difficult understanding like how to relate with those people. Whereas like when you grow up somewhere, you just know, you're like, Dip, what's up? You could meet somebody, just start talking about soccer and be their best friend in the bar. And I think musically, the challenge was also figuring out, because I wasn't anywhere near as good as I am now. And so one of the challenges was, okay, I need to stay, but I also need to get better, and I need to get better fast. And so one of the things I did was I'd have these challenges where I would wake up, you'd say, okay, today we're going to make beats in our minds for, say, you pick an artist and you say Alicia Keys. And then that day, the challenge is for 3 hours, you're making Alicia Keys beats as if Alicia Keys came in and sang. Then tomorrow you do, today we're doing Katy Perry, and you listen to what she's making, study how the charts are going, who writes, what do things sound like, and try to make those things. And so the one side of creatively just trying to improve and trying to get better because you're trying to also catch up to the people who you aspire to, but also trying to just, get a lay of the land. And then socially, it was more just, that was tough because it was getting out there, meeting people, you don't know where to go, and everything. Always see in music, everything feels like it's like close. Like you meet someone, I love your music. You're like, I'm getting signed. It feels like it's like the next step. But I think it was also socially navigating, like understanding who can you trust, who musically can you collaborate with and work with, and who understands. Even your vision as an African, for starters, is different to growing up in a country and always being there. I think the challenges that you face being there are completely, completely different. And sort of just trying to figure out who understands that, who could mentor me, who we could learn from, and then just kind of every day doing those things bit by bit.
So if you were talking to someone right now who said, which typically happens with people whose sound isn't the one that matches the soundscape of Zimbabwe. So maybe you don't have enough vernac, or your sound doesn't come from the urban groove sound, which is really like at the center of the Zim dancehall sound. Like, how would you advise someone like that to attack that international market?
Man, I think that's a conversation as artists we love to have, and as creators and as managers, and just it's like, okay, do you want to blow up internationally? And even what does it mean to blow up? What does it mean to make it? What would you be satisfied with if someone says this happened? And I think one of the things is you sort of have to decide what hill you're willing to die on. And so you don't have to sing in vernac if you don't want, but also I think there's the creative side and the business side where it's also maybe not a secret that some stations won't like that, or some people have mandates to not necessarily support that. So you're constantly trying to find what works for me and what would make me happy. And so some people, I think, if there's some things you can compromise on, then I don't think that's bad if you can live with that. But I think in my own personal experience, which is the only one I can speak for, is that I'm really, really proud of the Zimbabwean story, especially musically, because I think it's not the Nigerian one, and I love Afro beats, I love the Niger story. It's not really the Amapiano South Africa story, even though we're next door, we can kind of relate. Say like, but you're like, and we like all those things, but you're like, but that's not really my story. And so for me, it was figuring out at some point, okay, these guys singing maybe Yoruba, these guys singing their thing. To what degree am I comfortable with singing my own language? And at first, it's scary, bro. Especially, you're like, would they laugh? Then you're like, how do you write what the thing is? And so I think early on, you sort of have to decide, and the goal can change as you move, but you can decide, do I want this to be a global thing? Do I want it to be less? Do I want it to be niche? And I think based on where you're trying to go, then it can kind of inform your decisions. Could okay, if I do want to become the biggest Afrobeats artist in the world, then maybe the language needs to be a little more accessible to this place or that place. But I think for culture and like Venek and local instruments and stuff, I do think it's important to have the support of your people, because anybody who I look up to as an artist or aspire to be like, when they go to their hometown, I'm sure Burna Boy, when he pulls up, is just, and same as any country, Sean Paul in Jamaica, and so it's also a game of figuring out, okay, how can I do this in a way that people where I'm from would also love and be able to support this and get behind this, because I think they do want to. So you're always trying to figure out, how do I do that in a way that's still me, but that would also work for that.
So we've also had like a different dimension to that conversation. We've had quite a few local artists be signed to labels. So whether it was being signed to Sony like Mile or to Def Jam like ASAP, and like just from that perspective, like how helpful do you think that was? Because you're just talking about, every day you think I'm going to get signed, because getting signed is something that we've known to make the difference. Like if I get signed, the signing on bonus even means I might. Is that like a route that you'd advise people to go, and what are the things that they should be paying attention to?
See, my favorite answer to something like that is it depends, because two people signing to a label isn't the same situation. Two people signing to the exact same label. And I think it becomes a situation of, my friends and I have a phrase where you like to say, follow the clues. And so for me, it's a game of who's excited about you, who believes in you, who understands. And if that person happens to work at a big label, then I think, of course, that machine, it's no secret, it can help. But and it's incredible, but I think it's important that those people understand what you're trying to do and don't necessarily try to maybe rebrand something you don't understand or whatever the case is. But there's nothing better than someone being excited about your music, who gets it, who is trying to go the same place you're going. Now, if that's not the case, then I would say I don't think it's a good idea, But I think I'd more think about working with people rather than corporations, because at the end of the day, you could have an incredible person do a lot for you at an indie distribution company just because this person's like, when I go to sleep, I listen to Chai's music. When I wake up, I'm like, I believe in this guy. And that same situation can happen at a major. So I think it's something you have to be really honest about and really see like, okay, this is what they say you're supposed to do. But in my situation, will this help what I'm trying to do? Will I be able to make the music I want to make? Will I be able to put out music often? And I think in music at the moment, the big trend is signing to smaller companies and indie distribution companies, because the way music is moving so fast, there's also something really valuable about being able to adjust and adapt and, being able to drop music quickly. Sometimes when the machine is bigger, maybe they say, you can drop once every 3 months because we have to mobilize this whole thing and get this, this thing going. And so I think for me, where I'm at the moment, the main thing is also just getting as much momentum and excitement. And I think those things will come for anybody. If there's something happening and there's momentum and you're doing what you do, and it's like, I think the mentality has to be, nobody's coming to save you. So I've seen people sign and that not save the situation. I've seen people not sign and that not save the situation. But I think as long as you're every day waking up and saying, did I do more than I did yesterday? And am I better than I was yesterday, for starters? But also, what did I do to get me closer to where I'm trying to go? And that can be anything. That can be content, it can be interviews, it can be creating or whatever. And I think those blocks build and build and build. And at some point, you look up and there's interest here, there's this there. And if there isn't, then you keep going. But I think the goal is to kind of be as content and as excited within what you have and what you can control.
I was watching a Tyler the Creator interview where he was talking about music and reference points, and how a lot of people, whether it's the music they enjoy or the music they make, comes from like a specific reference point. So it might be rock music, right? But like, because I liked M at a certain point, it's gonna sound like Linkin Park or whatever, you know what I mean? And I've I wondered that about someone like you because I've seen you in so many different bags over the course of your career. Like, what would you say are some of your like biggest reference points music wise, especially locally?
I'm a guy who gets really inspired in short bursts. So like the way that I consume food or anything is like I'll go in for if I like something I'll eat the same thing for 10 days and then maybe I'll never eat it. So music is the same way. If I'm obsessed with piano, then I'm like I'm a piano lad and that's what we're doing today and that's what I'm listening to and that's what I'm consuming. And earlier was when it was in high school there's a lot of hip hop because I love beats. And in music, where you have the song and you have beats, I've always loved really good production and good beats. So in those days, hip hop was just interesting. You get Kanye, everything. They were sampling stuff, they were flipping stuff. J. Cole would flip a beat, a sample, and then someone. So I get inspired by those things and the worlds that people are able to create because a song can sound like a song, but to me, if you're able to make something that makes you go, ha! Where is this? Where did this come from? And that just feels like something that's exciting and that's something that's interesting to me, where inspiration comes from. And I think later on, at least now, I get inspired by people's stories. So you might meet somebody and they tell you, and it doesn't even have to be an artist. It could be a cousin. It could be an actor. But so there's something powerful about people telling you, actually, I'm from Burkina Faso. Like, what's Burkina Faso like? You'd be like, oh, what food do you eat? What things do you? And slowly you're like going into these worlds. And so maybe someone will show you a picture and you're just like, oh, this is crazy. And that'll just make you feel something and you try go make a beat. And so a lot of the beats I make, sometimes I'll name after people or places. So I'm sure I have a beat called Burkina Faso or like, you have a beat called Helensville Rhythm because that day you just went outside and people were having a good time. So it's like short moments of things that can excite you and following those clues. But for me, it's beats for sure, people's stories. And then now, because there's so much access to YouTube, you can watch people performing. There's nothing like, being able to watch someone express themselves in that way. So now that I'm an artist, I really gravitate towards, watching people on stage. How do they move? Shout out to Painter Fresco. Fire performance. Fire. And then you experience that, and that's his world, and that's his thing, and it's like, Dubai. You're like, oh, man, maybe I need to go Google Dubai, and it's just like,
that's such a Zimbabwean thing. Just Google, not even I need to go.
I'm going on, just investigate, So that's been my story.
But you didn't give me kinda one name, Dr. Chaai. Not even one.
You didn't ask me for names.
I did. I was like,
what did you say?
I don't remember.
I said what? Oh, not you.
Okay, fine. Who?
Thank you. At the moment, artists, for me, Burna Boy is high up in what I aspire towards because he was the first artist that I really saw be so proud to be African. I was like, this guy. I was like, he's onto something. And I remember there was a time when I think he had booked Coachella for the first time and it was the lineup. And he was like, put my name in big font, call me an African giant. And even I was like, I don't know.
Is it not too soon,
yeah,
my brother?
Like, just simmer down. And now I'm like, no, actually, that's how you have to see yourself. And it doesn't matter if the people who are booking or the people who've seen it. He was already like, I'm an African giant. And, he's never claimed to be from anything other than where he is. And I think, to me, that's something that's special and valuable to the point where now he's one of the biggest artists in the world, but very, very authentically African and Nigerian. So he's up there on the list, even just charisma, stage presence. I think it's a very complete package because I've always gravitated towards things that were just excellent. So it's like, to me, that's an excellent spirit where it's like he dances this way, the clothes are like this, the music is like this. I think that's dope. On a production point of view, everything that's going on in South Africa right now, I'm a piano, but I've never seen a country that can make so many genres. Bro, it'll be I'm a piano. Next week, Oh, bro.
House.
I'm a piano Bacardi. I'm a piano. Next week, I'm a piano Quantum. You're like, bro. How many times? This is Mozambique piano. You're like, bro.
Is this a genre or a variant of COVID?
Bro, there's no. Which one's which? I'm like, bro, it doesn't end. And to me, I think there's something I aspire towards because I think, I come from a place where a lot, even certain genres don't progress as much. But these guys will be like, we made this today, but tomorrow might be different. And if you come to the same club next week, they might not be playing that song you liked. And so I think musically, there's something about not having any boxes and being able to reinvent and reinvent and reinvent. And they're particularly, when I say they, I say, South African producers. And so, because I think they used to do it even with Kwaito and House, they used to move a lot. But I'm a piano production is just, to me, at the moment, really inspiring because also, I think it's valuable when it's accessible. So with like music, I think it's cool if a 16-year-old kid at school can go on YouTube and watch a tutorial of this amapiano beat and say, okay, so all I need is Fruity Loops, and then I can make this beat. To me, that's deep, and that's cool because all of a sudden that represents a way out for somebody, and they can see it and they know. But I think back in the day, if someone just said, okay, make Thriller by Michael Jackson, they're like, I don't even know where to start. Do I have to learn to play piano? Do I have to this? Do I have to so? That's really cool and just very authentic. I think another area, just from being home at the moment, I think there's a lot of cool young artists coming up in Zim from different places right now. And I don't know if it was always like this, but I don't remember it being like that. Maybe it's now like TikTok and IG and exposure. But bro, right now, it's like you could go to Chitungwi's and it'll be like, Brian Jack is selling out this place. And it'll be Zimbabwean drill.
Tanto wavy.
It'll be Tanto wavy, and you'll be like, right now it's Sungura piano. You're like, hey, okay, I can't keep up. Then you go somewhere else and it'll be K-Flow, and it'll be rap, but it'll just be, shout out K-Flow, bad boy.
Bad boy.
And I think this is the first time that I've seen it being so young. Whereas before it was just like the older guys just very fun and mimi, and it's difficult. But now it's like there's all these young kids, Herman, be in school, just being who he is, doing stuff, singing both. It'll be like Swahili, it'll be. And so I think to me, when I see young people being able to be appreciated from different places, it's not like, you have to be from Harare anymore. It can be Gweru, it can be Mutai. And I think that's fire because all of us, that's the only way I think a whole country musically can really get become a force, So that's inspiring to me because I think the young guys at the moment they're doing some serious things.
Man, they're really pushing, and they're, I think, also creating an industry more than anything else, where before it was, okay, we have this one good rapper or we have a couple of these guys. I think having more people creates an industry and also creates, because when you call and you're trying to get K-Flow and he's not available, Joe Major is, or Tanto Wavy is, you know what I mean? And that's always going to help.
And say, oh you. I said, let me help you out with the microphone. He doesn't have a mic, but he said, oh you.
Trying to figure out who's disturbing me. Anyway. But in that period where you get to the States and you are doing your reps in terms of trying to figure out all these different things, you, in that period, end up doing a lot. And of all the production, because I want to go and talk about your production credits, which are, again, I'm going to say more impressive than you think already.
Thank you, bro.
But of the ones that you worked on, which ones were the biggest shocks to get?
Man, biggest shocks. I think the first one is always the biggest shock.
What was that?
So when I'd moved to LA, it was close to the time that my 3 months was about to be up. The pressure was on. Fees are opera. Money was running out. Trying to make beats, you're stressed.
Is that the US visa or the visa at home?
Don't ask too many questions. That's your visa. But so, man, I remember I was just making beats, and I had linked with this on Twitter, this one producer that I looked up to at the time. I still look up to his name, Sumstyle. And he had been doing a lot of pop stuff, crossover stuff. And I had lunch with him, and he was like, bro, keep sending me stuff, send me beats. So I went home that day and I made 2 beats because I used to work really slow. So like, 1.5 beats a day was what you'd get from me. So I made 2 beats that day and I sent them to him. And at the time, it was like music was very island. It was everything, everything at that on top. So I went home and I made these 2 beats and I sent them to him. I was just excited about the day. And God, let me just use the excitement you're meeting and just, So I sent these beats to him. I go to sleep. Around like 3 a.m., I get a notification on my phone. And there was an email. I'll never forget it because I wasn't getting a lot of emails. So I was like, I know what that sound is, email.
Please don't be dead.
Yeah.
Please don't
Could
be
be
dead.
anything. But I opened this email from this producer, and it was him in the studio. He had like this camera like this, and it was one of the beats that I had sent him that day in the studio. And Sean Paul was in the studio with him, and he was just there. The beat was playing. He's like, "Oh, bad boy, we love this beat." I didn't understand what he was saying, but it was just, I was like, bro, immediate tears. I was like, I don't know if he's rapping on it, if he's singing on it, but all I know is that my song is being played in there, and Sean Paul is also in there. So something's happening. But fast forward, he ends up recording a song to this beat, and so for that one, I wasn't there for the writing part. I was there for the beat production. And so they record. The next day, he says, bro, you should come to my house so you can listen to how it's sounding and we can work on it and start producing. And so he says, come. He sits me down. He's like, sit right here. This is the sweet spot. I was like, sweet spot, Chicho. Just sit here. It sounds the best in here. And so he presses play and the song starts playing to the beat. And he's just like, feel your eyes, they all over me. And at the time, it was the songwriter who had written the song singing it. And he was just like, bro, Sean loves this song. At the time, he didn't have a deal. He wasn't really dropping music. It was quiet. And it was just like, you know what music is like. He wasn't hot at that time.
Do you want to harmonize that song one more time? Just in case someone didn't catch
for the people
what
in the
song
back.
that was exactly.
Your ass. But no, so then what happened was, then we work on the song. He's mentoring me. He's teaching me, okay, this is how you finish songs. This is how you edit vocals. This is how long the chorus should be. Nah, cut this part because if it's too long, then you have to keep people interested. I'm in school. Yeah. And then a few days later, he calls and Sean Paul calls and he's like, bro, he says to this guy, I love this song so much that I want to buy it and I want to put it out on my own. I don't have a label, but I just love this song. And at the time, he had been recording and stockpiling songs. And so then...
Buy it, huh?
Hey! Then the next couple of days, they call again. About my time is also running out. So every day is also like, hey, how soon? So maybe there was like a week left. And they call and he says, no, Sean wants to put this girl on the song. Her name is Dua Lipa. Now, at the time, nobody knew who Dua Lipa was at the time. So everyone was like, who's Dua? He's like, I thought it'd be Rihanna or someone. And so we were like, kind of like, and then, things started going well. He finished the song, don't hear anything. Long story short, the song eventually comes out. And during that time, Sean ends up signing just a singles deal just for that song to try and distribute it. The song comes out and the song becomes Sean Paul featuring Dua Lipa, No Lie. The song comes out. The beat is pretty much exactly how it was when on the couch. I mean, it sounded way better because this guy was incredible. He knows how to polish things, beef things. But just as far as an idea, it was the first time I'd ever heard a major artist on anything I'd made. The first time I'd ever had a song come out. This was the first time getting that validation, like, okay, so you can do this, And so for me, that one will forever be the biggest shock because at that point you're worried about home. You're trying to explain, so how's the music going? You're like, that question. You're like, I don't know how to answer.
After 2 months, man, I'm still making the first beat.
It's going. And so now that one was a lot of, even now, if you played it, it's just emotional. Immediate. You even just smell like the anxiety of the time and just this, but then it becoming what it was. It's just so many memories. But that one was, that's a shock.
But was it, during those 3 months, was there a time where you were like, maybe let me just go back to this agency?
Of course, bro.
Because you're running out of time, right? There's a week left, and how do you deal with that process of like, it's not even failure because you haven't done anything wrong, but it's like your career is forcing you to be more patient than you're willing to be. And I'm sure any creators in the room can, like, can attest to what that feeling is, where you're like, bro, I know this is dope. Like, why are you guys not paying attention to this?
Trying.
I'm trying. Was there a time where you're like, maybe this is too hard? And how did you deal with that?
It's a good question, bro.
I try.
But of course, bro, it's like, I think music and creativity is one of those things where apana like a finish line. Like if you said to someone, okay, what does it mean to you to be successful? It's like, is it awards? Is it getting number ones? Is it streams? Is it people actually knowing you? Is it people where you're from actually knowing you? So I think there's a constant anxiety and just having to refigure things out that happens in the creative space where no muka every day and the equation has moved. So whatever you learned yesterday, you're like, ah, and some stuff still works, some stuff doesn't. And the same applied to when I was trying to figure things out. So he would be like, maybe, okay, you're making progress. Oh, he loves the beat. And it's like, then maybe it just goes quiet for 2 weeks. Yeah, but you said he loved it. How much could he love it if he hasn't emailed in 2 weeks? And so I think there's a lot of anxiety that comes with the uncertainty and the managing that. And I very quickly learned that you have to get very comfortable with not knowing and very comfortable with uncertainty. And so to your question, there was a lot of moments where you're like, hey, that's a good idea because it's not guaranteed, you don't know. But the flip side of that, and I think the beautiful thing of that, is it's an amazing opportunity to exercise your faith, because at that point, upon a choice.
That's all you have.
So it's like you either say, I'm not going to do it, or you dig deep and try to figure out, what you lean on. And for me, that's God. So I think it was a lot of moments of just learning to trust God and learning to trust God's plan for your life, even when you can't necessarily see, like, how exactly is this going to work out? Because with music, you can never really see it, you can you have your goals and you have your visions, but to say, like, if I do this 1 + 1 +, it's not, nothing is, now it's equals 2. And so I think for me, the beautiful thing that came from that was just kind of understanding how faith works in like my own career and in my life, and just how to manage kind of like what you're saying, the stress and the anxiety of just
so you never forget the first one, but you also don't forget the best one and the biggest one. So I'm going to let you tell us what you feel like has been the biggest one, and whatever you use as a measure of that, and what you felt like was the best one of those production credits.
You're actually making me think today.
I'm trying.
It was cheap, the biggest and the best.
The biggest one and the best one.
In my own terms, and how I would measure the biggest, is I produced a song, and it was the first song that I had sang on as an artist. And I say this was the biggest because not that compared to any Sean Paul or Chris Brown song or anything that it has as many streams or as many this or as many that. But it was the biggest in terms of it was the song that I started singing on. It was the song that moved the needle in my artist career in a way that allowed me to believe in shifting from being a producer to being an artist, and now, okay, no, you can actually do this, Because I think there's always like an imposter syndrome, where you're like, I think I'm good, but
maybe I got lucky.
Yeah, 100%. And so it's a song called Jackie Chan that is me and Bantu, who I mentioned earlier. So come on. And the song ended up being in the FIFA 19 video game soundtrack. And so thank you. But I say the biggest because let me tell you guys, when that song came out, or let me even say before, we were just making beats, and the whole thing was we were frustrated because Afro beats hadn't started taking off. It wasn't necessarily like, oh, it's cool to make African music, or that. There was no conversation like Vinek or not. That was not a thing. And so we would like write these songs and I'd make beats that had like Afro vibes and send them to people, but nobody would sing them. So now it's common for someone like Justin Bieber to say, like, tap this Thames song and hop on, and it's normal now. But at the time, if you made something African, even Afrobeats light, nobody was taking it. So we looked at each other and said, ew, should we just sing this song? I'm like, maybe we should sing it, bro. And we just gassed each other up. You know how guys can be sometimes like, this is gonna be crazy, bro. Yeah, bro. You think, yeah. So then we saved the little money we had. Went to New York, had never been there really. When the three of us with James, our videographer, shout out, went there for 3 days. And we just went more road. It was just like a road like this, just started shooting. Just like we just got there, went on the street and just started running around and shooting a video, not knowing anything, just young and just excited. Come back home, like, bro, let's drop it. This is about to be crazy. Song comes out. Put the video on YouTube. This thing gets 20 views. If that, we're like, but I thought it was fire. And like, bro, be like, no, maybe.
And YouTube Studio is so rude because they'll be like, you have 20 views and only 2 of them listen till the end.
It says
you didn't have to tell me all that information.
It says here are your viewers, and they're all from your house. It's your brothers, your mother. Or
you have 4 siblings but 3 views. Like, which one of you guys decided not to listen to my song?
It's the girl you're talking to, who you're trying to impress. She also added view number 19. That was rough, boy. So we're like, and it's like with the faith thing, you're still just like trying to operate. You're like, trying to believe in like the perfect plan for your life unfolding, but it was tough. So then we're like, let's just keep doing what we're doing. But it was painful and confusing. Because with music, with every song you make and everything you do, it's like a part of you. It's like, upon a song, you don't know what I'll do. It's like, it's like you're constantly expressing. So depending on how something goes, it can definitely affect how you feel. So in a couple of months go by, maybe now we're on like 100 views. Maybe, I don't know, a couple hundred or pushing. Then I got a call out the blue and my phone rang and it's like, hey, is this Chaai? It's like, yes, it's Chaai. And this lady is like, hey, this is Sarah from EA Sports. We heard your song, Jackie Chan, and we want to put it in the FIFA 19 video game. I said, hey! At first I was like, this is one of my friends, and this is a joke. This is a bad joke. Because I love soccer, bro. It's serious. It's serious. So, and it's my favorite game. So they're like, no, it's a rush, actually, so we need to get things over the line. And you're like, all right. But nevertheless, the thing is 100 views. What's the worst that could happen? Yeah. So get the song together a cappella, because they ask you to prepare these things and we send them. Quiet. Like, okay. September comes and they announce the soundtrack for the game. And I'll never forget it. The soundtrack dropped and then the Instagram post was like, it was like a picture of Cristiano like this. And it had all the artists who were on the soundtrack, and there it said Dr. Chaai had my name, and I was like, bro, I can't believe. So the song comes out, the game comes out, and the soundtrack comes out, and people started playing the game, and we'll be hearing it and stuff, and then this thing just goes completely viral. Like the first time I'd ever even seen or experienced with the Chichinonzi viral, at least in my own way.
Switch off your notifications.
I know, they're never off. You have to enjoy. And so, you have to enjoy. No, but then the game comes out and people were liking it and playing it. Then because of the way PlayStation works, when people like it and save it, they'll put it to the front more than the thing was going to the front. It was a movie. And so I say the biggest, to still go back to your question, because that was a really, really big breakthrough for me. Production-wise, career-wise, singing. I didn't think I had much of a voice. That was the first time people really heard the voice. It was a lot thinner and just a lot, but you can at least be confident. Like, no, this is my voice. And somebody somewhere is enjoying it. And so it was a really big one as far as a shift of confidence, breakthrough, like artist-wise. And so to me, that's probably the biggest, if you say, because without it, I don't think the story goes the same way.
Yeah, because it sounds pivotal more than it is just big. It's like the career takes a different shape. The best one, if someone was like, yo, we're sending one Dr. Chai song where he's on production, and this is the song that's representing him. We don't know who's going to be listening, so it can't be genre specific. So I'm just sending one song. What song are you gonna send?
I actually know which one it is. The best, technically, or what I consider to be the best song I've produced or been a part of, is a song I produced called Hey Ma for, it was J Balvin, Pitbull, and Camila Cabello. And it was for the Fast and Furious soundtrack.
Man said
So-
J Balvin, like that's not LeBron's friend.
No, but I say thank you. The best because something amazing happened where you don't often get to create something knowing where it's going to end up. So usually when you make music, you're reverse engineering it, like, okay, I'm making this thing, now I need to go figure out where will it play, who will like this, what playlist, what's the video gonna look like. It's more problem solving. But this one was an idea of a song that had happened, and then it actually started as like an Afrobeats idea. Because I was inspired, like I listened to WizKid and it was Ojo Legba at the time, and it was like, I was like, this is hard. So I was like, I could copy something like that. But the people from my publisher who were just pitching songs, sending songs to people, blasting songs, they sent it to the people who were curating the movie for Fast and Furious. So we found out that they loved this song, and then we worked on it, knowing that this could end up in the Fast and Furious movie. And at that point, everyone is just playing to the everything is off. You're staying up. You think you're Quincy Jones. You're anything you think. You're like, yeah, let's add horns. Bro, do you think we should put guitar? He's like, who can play guitar? I don't know. I will find the guitars. And it was just like everybody was actualizing their dreams. You're like, bro, what if? I don't know what. Okay, but it's like, bro, what if we just put chants in the song? They go, yeah. I was like, everyone's like, yeah, bro, good idea. There was no bad ideas that day, bro. Everyone was in their bag. Even if it was a bad idea, but throw it, we'll make it work. So that one ended up being this song, bro. It was just like, then they'll come back, they'll be like, no, we need an intro for the movie. Like, say less. Now you think you're like, I'm a film scorer. So then the thing comes back, you're like, intro, say less. Have you ever made an intro for anything? And so now you're like, yeah, bro, let's get some. Oh, the scene is based in Cuba. Like, oh, what if we get some flamenco piano from Cuba? Have you ever played the flamenco piano from Cuba? Good idea. No, bro, let's. And everyone was just, it was like, everyone was playing at a really, really high level and was just very excited. And I think with anything, it's difficult to always be excited, whether that be a job, life, a relationship. It's like, how do you stay excited? And how do you stay passionate to do something? That one was excitement and enjoyment overload. Everyone was like, couldn't sleep. Wake up, bro, did they respond? Yeah, they like it. What don't they like? Let's change it. So then eventually when the beat was done, they started asking, started piecing it together, because the way it worked for the movie, they don't care that much about songs in the sense that musicians do. They're more thinking, which artists can we attach to this that would help the movie in different places? So they're like, let's get J Balvin, he's the biggest in Colombia, so that when it drops, there's like a Colombian thing. And then it was like, no, why don't we get Pitbull, because of he's like a pop star but halfway. And so then it was like the reverse thing, where by the time this thing was finished, it was like, oh, they sent ad-libs. We're like, our version number 200. Yeah, no, they sent their ad-libs, and they're like, hey, yeah. Is it a good idea? Yeah, throw it. By the time you press play, this thing sounded like a movie. It sounded crazy. Even to this day, it's like, even if someone asked you, make this beat, it's impossible.
Yeah, I mean, it took 17 people.
Yeah,
so,
it took a village, bro.
It took a village.
Yeah, so that was probably, I think that's the best production.
So we've been seeing you back here quite a lot lately. Where we see you at the Star FM studios doing your
Shout out
interview.
Star FM.
Shout out Star FM. What's informing what feels like a conscious decision to re-engage, because a lot of these things were happening when the average Zimbabwean didn't know who Dr. Chaai was, but he's on FIFA already. He's on records with J Balvin and Chris Brown, and I mean we didn't even get around to all of that. But what informs the decision now to say I'm going to spend more time at home and make music with people from home?
I think there's a lot of answers to that question, and one of the main things is that as Afrobeats was growing, as the South African Amapiano thing was growing, as reggaeton and Colombia and all these things are growing, and you're getting your Bad Bunnies, your Bovins. I think one of the things was it would just bother me, like the role of Zimbabwe music and all of that discourse, because I think that we have some of the most talented musicians in the world, and I think that it's a people that manage to do so much with so little. And so I just felt like when I was looking at all these artists that I aspired to be like, Burna, whoever, I think at some point you have to think like, okay, I'm doing all these things, I'm trying to figure this out, but what does it mean to my 16-year-old self who is maybe trying to be a music producer? And it's like, who is it really helping, and who is it what is it actually building, you know? And so I just felt really strongly about just like this, the community of creatives, but specifically music for me, because I think it's the only way that things can really start to move. And same with what's happening with like the young artists, like I was saying. Once you start having a community and people are talking and this conversation and you're exchanging skills and I'm learning things and they're learning things, I think something magical happens where there starts to become a momentum and a pride and like a synergy where like you're proud to be where you're from and proud of the music. And so that was kind of one of the things that sparked the beginning of it. And I think it would bother me, like, you know, that you produce these things, but maybe like you're saying, you come home and it's like you're not necessarily, things aren't like gelling the right way. And I think that it's because we all have a very, very unique story to tell and a unique role to play. And for me in my career, I think that role is involves being very proudly Zimbabwean and very proudly a Zimbabwean musician and very proudly an advocate for producers and music and that, and just kind of, so I started obviously coming home more, working with people more, and just like wanting to be in the culture, because the truth is, you know, you can't really be in the culture of something without being there. And so I started coming more, and I just thought it was important, like, you know, like to understand what's going on. You have to be at Star FM and see what's going on. You have to be at these shows, and you have to be at these places to really understand what's happening, what's the vibes, what's the cool things that happen, what's happening in fashion, what's happening in arts, what's happening, and you start to find out that there's all these cool things that are happening in all these different spaces, fabric party, whatever, like people really just doing cool, amazing things. But I think it only works when people work together. And that's something I've seen from the Nigerians and also a lot of these other places. They're like, they don't care whose song it is. If that artist is a Nigerian, yes! You know? And so I think that's a cool thing that's happening in Zim right now with the music, where there's a lot of synergies going on. So I think it's just, I feel really strongly about playing my role in telling that story. But also I think that the only way to shape what does that mean to be a Zimbabwe musician is like, it involves everybody. So it's like, you know, what does it mean? What do things sound like? I think it's cool when Sungura is on Amapiano. I think it's cool when you take a guitar like that and put it on hip hop. No, that's not any other country's role to do. That's ours. But I just think that now more than ever is the right time for that, because you're getting a crop of artists and people who are just excited and proud to be where they're from, and they're not negotiating with nobody, you know.
Not at all.
And so that's, yeah, I think one of the main reasons. And I think it's just, I think it's exciting right now. I think what's happening creatively here is exciting.
Yeah. So I want to move into the last part of this before we also start to involve some questions from the crowd. But the thing that's most exciting for me not Dua Lipa, is the Winky D feature.
She.
I think it was more than anything unexpected, right? We knew an album was coming, and then he put out this album, which was very evidently tapping into all these different markets, and one of the names on there was Dr. Chaai. How does that first conversation with Winky D come about, or do you reach out to him? How does it go?
Man, that's another story. So at the time, I was just really struggling with figuring out what's exciting to me, what do I want to do, what do I want to work on, who I'm excited to work with, just trying to figure out where my career was going to go. But for some reason, all roads were leading to just being excited about what was taking place at home. And, I've always liked, obviously before it was like the Zim dancehall stuff, but I just think that there's a lot of exciting creativity happening here. So everything would just lean back to that. And so initially, I remember thinking one day, I was like, maybe I should just DM this guy. I don't know. It's like, let me just try. So I just DM'd him, and I was like, King Dave. And I said something, and I left it. I was like, I was nervous, bro, because, you're like, yeah, I don't know. There's something, it's like, so it's almost like texting a girl that you have a crush on, or flip the phone over. You're like, whew. And so he responded. It was like, King Dave. I'm like, oh! And then we go back and forth. I was like, I love the music, blah, blah. I'd love to put out. Long story short, we end up having a conversation the next day just on the phone. We're just talking about music and catching up. And I was just saying, I'm fanning out at this point. I just love. From Green Like My Garden days. I'm just like, this is crazy. And so at the time, it's like, well, Ed, anything you need, this production, this beats, however I can. I just whatever, I'm just here. And so the conversation didn't last very long. Then the next day again, off the excitement of the conversation, I went to the studio and I made again 2 beats. And I just went to the studio and kind of treated it like as a producer, and just thought, I think the question you're always asking yourself is, if I had the opportunity to produce for this artist, how would I want it to sound? And so I just went home to the studio and made 2 beats with Winky D in mind, but very specifically. And then I texted them to him. I was like, Dave King made these beats, that did for you. I don't know. Hope you like them.
Just let us know.
And then he just said he checked them out. And then I didn't hear back for 3 months. It was a long time. And one day he just texted back. He said, I did something. He said, bloop. And it's like a voice message. And I press play on this thing. And it's like, boom, 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 boom. And the song starts. And he's like, I'm like, oh! I'm losing it. Losing it is an understatement, and he's just rapping. It's like just sliding. Nobody could tell me nothing that day. So when the dust settles, I'm like, whatever you need. If you need to finish production, if you need to mix it, master it, whatever you need. I'm just happy to be here.
Booking.
And so he's like, yeah, that'd be dope. Not much. So then I just took it as went, and I was like, worked on the beat a little more, worked on the vocals, and I sent it. Didn't hear back for another month. I'm like, bro, my heart. You wake up, you check the phone, like, nothing. Wake up, nothing. So anyway, one day again, ping, King Dave. I'm like, he's like, yeah, no, actually I was thinking, Panaka Gap, after that verse, production is fire, but Gandroro verse, that'd be hard. I was like, I procrastinated for another 2 weeks. I was like, I don't know, what do I say here? I'm trying to write. I'm like, do I sing in Shona? I'm in. Then you're like, do I write? And you're like, Shonglish? I don't know. Just come to the studio, you try. You go back, try again. And then one day, I think time was just, I could just feel like, this has been a long time that you haven't done this for. I was like, today, let me just give it my best. So I just shut myself off, start writing, start doing melodies, start figuring out that verse. And it's kind of like these days on like IG and stuff, you'll know like you have these like if I had a verse on this song. So I was like, if I had a verse on a Winky D song and wrote it like that because you're like, hey, it's either you show up and you stay on the song or you don't show up and maybe you don't hear back. And so I just go in, I write, I finish it, I send it. And then he called and he's like, this is crazy. He's like, I love it. I was like, you love it? I was like, I can't believe. Didn't hear back again. Then now it's like, oh, let's mix and master the song. But I didn't know at the time that there was an album. I didn't know that there was but as a producer, you get in the habit of always finishing things because nothing can ever happen if you don't finish it. So it's like even with songs, even the ideas, you're like, hey, we have this joke, you're like, I played that song, Shamas. You might be like, we all have these songs where it's like, it has no lyrics, so it's the beat and it's rough and you haven't finished it, but you're like, again, that be nah, just finish it because they can't even be excited about it because it's not better. So finish it, we start going back and forth. We have notes, he sends the vocals, this. But I just noticed like there was a lot of like conversation now happening. And then we finished the song. I still have no idea there's an album. Then it's not like I think December or something. And then I saw him announce like, oh, album coming. So I was like, wow, I wonder if. I was like, let me not even get my hopes up. So I just leave it. And then the way the album rolled out was that he was dropping 2 songs a day or something, or 1 song a day. And it would just be a different artist that day, different. I didn't even know that was the case. But now you're in the game of waking up every day. You're like, maybe I would. Not today. Maybe I would. I think it was like day 6. I was like, I don't think it's happening, bro. And then I went to sleep that day. And then my phone rang. And it was Winky D. And I thought they needed the like more files or something. Because with production, you're always sending stuff. Do you have edits? Is it the kick is too loud? Man, people always have notes. So I just had my phone on loud, and the phone was here every day just in case it rang. It said rang. I was like, Dave, hello. I'm like, what do you need? And he's like, have you been online? I was like, online. I was like, I was asleep. Then I was like, hey, but the first thing is like, how's my? He's like, Makorokoto. I was like, okay. He's like, you haven't been online. I was like, no. He was like, I haven't been online. Put the phone down. I turn on I pick up my phone. I open Instagram. Hey, that day, I just opened the thing and it said Winky D featuring Dr. Chaai Spirit. And again, I was like, shock, excited, just can't believe it. The notifications, like, beep, 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 beep. I'm like, do people like it? Do people hate it? You just don't know because now you're like, okay, you're just excited it's out, but then now you're like, hey, you don't like this song. And honestly, the reaction and the response to that song was the most overwhelming thing that's ever happened because I realized there's just nothing more exciting and valuable than being able to participate in like your culture, but also the culture you're excited about, but playing the role that I feel like I'm best at. And so I love production, and it was an opportunity to produce, and it was like how I imagined it happening, and that's not always the case. And then getting to do a verse, and you're like, oh my god, and like having to play at that level and have it come out, and the response was just amazing. I think people just like affirmed everything so much.
It's a great song, man.
Thank you, bro. And so then it came out and kind of affirmed what we were just talking about, like when things happen in the culture that you're participating in or that you're in or that you care about, things are so much more special. And it's like, I think so many more synergies happen. And then it's like now you're working with other artists, you're communicating with other people, but just now you have a role to play. And so it's a song that I'll forever be grateful for because it was the first one of that nature and the one that really allowed, those doors to open in that way. So that one was a movie.
So we're going to go into some questions from anyone. 2 seconds, just now. But I also wanted to mention that you now, ever since you came back, have a song that's been #1 on Star FM for 4 weeks. Yeah, man. Shout
Thank
out.
you, bro.
You're definitely causing a bit of a vibe, and now there's an EP coming soon as well,
Yes, sir.
which we will want to talk about before we finish. But we'll take a question from Nigel. We are told it.
She man like Nigel,
Man, like,
Davy.
I grew up with Dr. Chaai, actually, by the way. I'm asking this question now also as a father that perhaps, let's say my son wants to get into music, right? So that's the back context. My phone's out of battery. I had like 4 questions, but I can remember 2. So the first question is, firstly, like there's a wave of African music coming, right? Uh, is that a real thing? Like obviously you see like uh, that Lato Days is about to do a song with Davido. You know what I mean? Like there's a wave of African music influence from Wizkid. Essence has done so well. So how is that affecting you, right? And is that something that has longevity or is just a phase, right? And then the second question is, if my son decides to get into music, um, is there longevity? Is this an industry that is actually coming up? Of course, as art in Zim, of course we can see it. You know what I mean? But in terms of music as itself, if you're going to say, look, go out there and make a name for yourself, is that something that is happening? You find now for like soccer, there's now Arabian League, there's now MLS. For music as an industry for Zimbabweans, is our music exportable or we don't have a sound? I think it's a loaded question, but if we don't have a sound of our own, like how is our music exportable? If we're gonna keep on taking sounds from other people and someone wants to take music seriously or art seriously, how then do they tap into that?
Those are great questions, bro. Thank you. I think to answer your first question, so I don't forget, the longevity of music and Afro beats and how exportable is it and how sustainable is it. I think that people export culture and they export people. And so I think over and above is their sound and is there's this. I think music has been exportable for a lot of reasons forever. Sometimes it's exportable because of the fashion, because of the sound, because of the this. And I think that now more than ever before, what's happening with Afro beats and African music in general is to me the most exciting thing maybe that I've ever seen in music. Because now you're able to play a role in like a way that you can identify with and that you're comfortable with. No one's coming to say I had to be a superstar to make it. You have to come and make rock and roll, which is great. But it's like there's nothing more valuable than someone being able to see. Wait, you're seeing vocalistic in wherever, singing in Pitori. I don't know anyone else who can even speak the language, going crazy. Same with I think everything going on with Zimbabwe music at the moment. You're seeing Natio in the UK, Malawi right now, Zimfest going on, but there's a big appetite that I'm not sure was necessarily there before, where I think the opportunity is just going to keep increasing. So I think anytime you attach countries and cultures and people, there's no telling how long something like that can stay. It's forever because Zimbabwe will always be there. Afrobeats is attached to Africa, that'll always be there. So all of a sudden it's attached to a reality of people, you know? And so as far as the longevity, I don't think it's a wave at all. I think if anything, it's starting to, I think it's just the beginning. And just the beginning of seeing people from different places. Right now we've just seen the Nigerian story and this, but we're going to start seeing Malawi and we're going to start seeing Ivory Coast. You're going to start seeing, and it's happening already. So I think as far as the longevity, that's to me, without a doubt, that's the new world order. And I mean, you're seeing Rema topping Billboard and so on. You're seeing Libianca from Cameroon having a song and it's top 10 right next to Taylor Swift, right next to. So that's someone else's reality, which maybe wasn't the reality when we were in school and this. It was just a different thing. But even your child is a boy or a girl? It's a boy. So and so he's growing up seeing a different thing to aspire to that maybe didn't exist when we were there, but he's seeing a version of himself at the highest level. And so I think, as far as whether or not you think it's a good idea for him to pursue music, amazing, amazing things can happen when a parent supports a child in something. And I think the biggest I love you can give to somebody is support the things they're excited about and their passions and their visions, because it's just the supernatural things happen, because that's a representation of God's love in that moment. It's just, okay, this is your purpose, this is what you're excited about, and I'm going to support you. So I think to say where can it go or how will they do or what will happen is something else. But yeah, that's faith, and nobody can tell you that. But is it all possible? Absolutely. But I think, very early you have to be comfortable with knowing what are the goals. Will I be happy that they tried? Will I be happy that they went and experienced some things and they wrote some songs and they did and they're pushing? And, the outcome, obviously, within reason, you're still trying to parent. But I just think that, yeah, being able to focus on your passions is an amazing thing. So, however that looks in your own world and in your own household, I think you figure it out and, you start to understand how you play that role. But I definitely think that, he might surprise you.
Yeah, most certainly. I think like maybe the next question that I can remember from my notes then ties up, right? So, like you did mention that you did a marketing degree, right? And you went on to do your master's, right? So, from the way we grew up, like what you said, tanga waita chikoro. So how is that chikoro benefiting you in what you're doing now? I feel like there's a gap there, and I feel like we always get to think that because you have a marketing degree. Look at J. Cole. You know what I mean? He says that he's a graduate. A lot of rappers aren't graduates, and the way he's moved has helped him or elevated him in a different way than other rappers. So for you, like the marketing degree, the marketing masters, are you applying it? And if so, how? Are there any? Because Americans will be like, Iowa, we know better. Do you get what I mean? But when you get into a room with people and you say, look, I've got a master's in marketing, do they listen to you when you say, look, I want to market my music this way?
I think the first part of the question was, am I using that aspect of what I studied in my career now? And the answer is 100%, bro. I mean, in the beginning, it wasn't always like that because you're just trying to still get good at making songs and trying to figure it out. But the world has changed in a way where Instagram is you being a brand. You being on someone's page and following them and liking them is just a representation of the brand they've built and the world they've created. And if you click somebody and you go see their clothes and what they're wearing and how they're talking and how they're engaging with people, that's you interfacing with their brand. And so I think once I started getting exposed to that understanding, like, wow, no, like everything is just that, I started being able to apply that to my own artistry. So it's definitely helped in a way where I think just like anything, it's not very X and Y and it's a bit gray, to say like, if I go into this room with this degree, what will happen? I think it's just more a question of the reason you went to school and do those things was to learn and figure out the best way to improve your life from doing that. And that equation looks different for everybody. And so one of the things too that's hard even for, I think someone young and like a child is also trying your best not to compare yourself to people too much. Because J. Cole's story is not my story, and it's not your son's, and it's not this person's, but it's valuable. But it's also being able to learn from people, but still understand like, okay, the path that God gave me is the path that only He gave for just you and just your son. So it'll look different And as a parent, I think there's a need for some certainty. But you create certainties in the ways that you can. But in some other things, like I was saying, you might not have the answers until they happen. It's like that becomes the faith side.
Yeah. So I'm gonna start. Big fan, by the way.
My
Big
brother.
So my question is based off of your answers today. You were talking about being a beat maker and a producer. So what's the difference between making a beat and being a producer?
I love that question. Thank you, bro. Brian was like, talk that talk. Funzago. I think, in my opinion, beat making is about literally creating the beat. So you're playing things, you're creating this thing. Before even a song is written, before anything is happening, you're cooking up, you're making a beat. And there's nothing to say a beat can become just a beat. A beat can become a song. A beat can become a jingle for dairy board. A beat can be, it's anything. It's like just the music side. But when you're dealing with production, it usually includes making beats or making the beat. But also over and above that, I think producing is kind of the art and the skill set of being able to bring things, everything that's required to put together the final vision of a song. So someone can be in a studio with you, and maybe them producing that day is just getting the artist to feel like the most confident version of themselves. Maybe they're going through a breakup and they don't feel like singing that song today, but can you talk to that person and make them feel like, bro, like, get them to sing their best for that moment and perform at their highest. Production is about, after the song is done, vocal work, getting the vocals to sound a certain way, getting things to mesh a certain way, mixing things, and just kind of crafting something up until, the finished product. And sometimes that's on your own. Sometimes it's knowing when you need to reach out to other people. Sometimes it's knowing, okay, what's the best way to present this thing? And so a producer usually is able to tie all those things together. And it's a role that's very intangible. But usually I think with a lot of the great producers, when you mention certain artists, there's always a really, really incredible producer somewhere. And I think these days the cool thing is with certain genres like hip hop, there's a culture of learning who the producer is. If a beat says, "Oh, Mike Wu made it," you're like, okay, so for all those songs, this guy was around. So good things happen when this guy's around. And it's like back in the days, maybe Quincy Jones and Michael Jackson. You can't separate it. So I think production is something that they go together, but I think that's a skill set that develops with exposure and experience and time, and like being able to learn from people and craft things. But the beat making side is the purest form of I'm making this the instrumental of this.
Okay, so I'm going to follow up to that. So someone like Kanye, for instance, right? In his early days, he was certainly considered like a beat maker, right? But nowadays, you feel like there will be like 10 people on production credits, right? What's more valuable, the person who like brings that to life, or the person with the idea to be like, yo, I want this to sound like this, you guys give me this idea, well, the guy who puts it together, or from, you know what I mean, like Khaled is the producer, right? Yeah, so like what's more valuable, because you have to have that idea, right? And someone has to make it. So like,
I think it's all valuable, bro. I think to me, music is a collaborative thing. And I think it's only really in hip hop where it's like, did you write the lyrics? Are these bars yours? And who made this beat? And I did it by myself. But for as long as I can remember, bands have been on stage with a drummer and a guitarist and a this and a that. And you're collaborating. And it's the same way in any job. Usually you're talking to people, you're getting ideas from people. So it's really difficult to place one sole value on something, because someone can walk into a room one day and just say, oh, bro, have you guys listened to this new genre, Kodama Piano, and leave. And maybe the most valuable thing was that because of what he said, the whole room went on YouTube and started going in a certain direction. So there's always a silent creative force guiding things. and it's all equally as important because it takes a lot for something to come together. Said at the back said yes. I mean, I think so, but it's very subjective, you know. I think credits is like philosophies. It's like soccer teams where someone might say the most valuable player on this team is Ronaldo because he scores all the goals. Someone else might say, I know we actually have a transfer coach that's scouting 16-year-old players, and that's the reason this academy is working. So I think sometimes the credit side and the title of who did what gets in the way sometimes of what's important, because I think what's important is the best possible outcome happening. So if all you people came somewhere and the best thing possible took place, then I think then everybody won, you know? And we must. So yeah, so your answer is yes, but from the creative point of view, I'm just saying, you said, where do you assign value to things? I think that all those roles are valuable.
I don't know. I'm going to ask just a few questions, maybe one or two. Or
Yes,
something.
sir.
I don't know. Let's see how it goes. All right. I'm going to double back. You talked about Burna Boy being someone you looked at, or you look at, being the African giant because he does his thing in whatever language that is. Then you also mentioned that people are Rema and them are also topping this chart, doing what they do in their language. Yeah. You are based in LA, I'm assuming. All right. You're based there. You're working with all these cats. And then you are now making music as an artist. Are you, as an artist, connecting with Zimbabwe? Are you, as a producer, telling a Zimbabwean story? Because there's one thing about saying African music, but African music, from what I'm seeing, is piano and it's Afrobeats, of which those are two countries. And then how then do you carry Zimbabwe and then go and do a song which will have the whole world listening, dancing to, not understanding what they say, what you're saying, in Shona?
So I think I hear a couple questions there.
Yeah, I said that. Yeah.
And so,
A lot.
no, good questions. I think that to start from your last one, to say by the time something becomes a global thing, a lot of things had to happen for that to be the case. So to say, how do you make this song and make it the biggest song in the world? We're now talking about an artist that have had 10-year careers and maybe interesting things where maybe their country has 200 million people, maybe where, so there's a lot of things that have to happen. I don't think anyone can ever say, I made this song, I put this language, I did this, and I concocted a global sensation. I think a lot of little things have to go right all the time, and so even in their careers. And so,
Okay, wait. Whilst you're there, that answer. It's yes, but then how then do? Because I'm not saying you are going to create it, but
how does someone?
how does you? Okay, I'm going to you, Camera, that boy in the UK, Rhymes, the other one in the UK. Who also works with WINKY D.
Just Zimbabweans outside, basically.
Like all those guys, because there are a lot of you guys who are doing amazing jobs that side around the world. And then, because if you, every time you then write a song, you can then include your story, which is what all those cats did. Because if you start creating something that can become like a virus, I'm not saying after 2 days it's going to go global like piano, but it's going to brew, because there are also artists who are based in the UK, who are based in Australia, based there. If you do you guys even communicate in creating a network whereby you are in the States, you're working with Dua Lipa, whatever, whoever, but you are also creating things that everyone else who's out there, right now Camera is flying high with Chris Brown and Chakadero, but are you guys connected enough for you to say, we are going to take this thing over, and just not over, but probably just start putting ourselves in there?
Yeah, I think in your question, I think there's a lot of things there that need to be unpacked. And the first one is, I think, when you mention Chris Brown and these things, if these people are serving Jamaican food, you don't go into a Jamaican restaurant and say, how do I put Indian ingredients? These people came and asked you to make a specific thing. But within that, I think the role that you play is one, I think there's even an education that happens because you're meeting people, you're existing with them, you're telling them their story, and they're experiencing you. There's an education that happens of even knowing a country, knowing what's going on there, knowing the culture. For someone to even be their ways producing these things, so many things had to happen where someone had to mention him in a room and so on. I think the hard part and the challenging thing is figuring out what role do you play and how can you play it, right? Because, for example, maybe with the Chris Brown song I did, it's very Zim dancehall influenced, and that worked out. But there's some other songs where you might not necessarily have the opportunity to put that in instrumentals or in this. So you're always trying to find ways to incorporate your true experience. But I think, as long as that person is Zimbabwean and as long as that person is expressing their Zimbabwean story, I think that's already contributing to a thing because it's like all these things need to happen for things to start moving, And so I think everyone's playing a role and everyone's building the culture in ways that they can. Maybe, if it's your own song, maybe you do add Shano, maybe you don't. But I think the best thing you can do is figure out how to authentically be Zimbabwean in the spaces that you are able to have an influence in. And sometimes you do have the opportunity to do that, but sometimes you don't. And sometimes you have to know when to pick your battles. So if you do have the opportunity to do that, maybe you can. And then if you don't, maybe you figure out different things. But I think all these things, bit by bit, start adding. So by the time you start seeing Afro beats and Nigeria and there's a lot of things that happen and a lot of artists who are doing small things in small places, bit by bit by bit by bit. And eventually it paints like a really, really big picture. But I don't think one person ever accomplishes all that. I think it's just you add to that brick by brick the best way you can.
And sometimes you walk so other people can run. So we are, like I said, one of the key things about today was to make sure that we got really good footage of what we're doing here so that it can live, in the future, so people can come and listen to this conversation with Dr. Chaai or whoever else we have. But one of the things that was supposed to be a part of this was playing music, but you didn't want to do it initially, and then you found a way to talk so much that would run out of battery in our cameras. What a guy. However, I kind of caught you early, so we'll still we'll vibe to 2 of the songs.
That's perfect.
So, Missing You is coming out tomorrow.
So Missing You is my next single, and thanks for asking. Time for plug. My EP, Minister of Enjoyment, comes out on the 31st of August, and I'm so excited about this because, for one, it just takes a lot to finish a project that you're excited about, but this project just sounds like my personality and the things that I care about and the things I'm excited about. So the next single off that is Missing You, and to kind of the point, it's got a lot of guitar, but Afro, but piano, but a little Shana, but a little English, but just it's a kind of a love song. There's a lot of things I'm really, really excited about. So that's coming up next. And
if you're gonna use our platform as a place to plug yourself,
plug.
the least I can do is give the people a chance to listen to the item early, so that everyone goes home with an exclusive. Today. So give us Missing You real quick.
Oh yo. Can we have some voltage, please?
watching.